All right, welcome to this next lesson on nested loops. This should be an idea that becomes intuitively obvious once you think about what we already know about loops and code blocks. Let's take a look at some example code here. So when I look at this code here, then we can see something that becomes really obvious when we think about it. We have two nested loops, or we have a set of nested loops. One loop here on line 7 and another for statement here on line 9 that is within the curly braces of my outer loop. And just as I've stated before, any code can go between curly braces. So that anything is illegal within this first loop. But we need to develop some intuition about how these work. So first, I'm just going to print out the value of my outer counter. So I'm going to print out the value of my outer counter, and at the end of each time my loop goes through, I'm just going to create a new line. So when I run this, you're going to see here that I simply print out the numbers 1 to 10. So I've defined my table size as 10, which is what my outer counter is going to count up to, and it simply prints out the numbers 1 to 10 vertically. Now inside here, I have another print statement where I am going to check the inner counter. And I'm simply going to do a print statement here, just as I did with the outline. But think, the outer loop rather, think about what's going to happen. Predict what's going to happen as I click this run button. Pause it if you need to before you see this output, and here it is. We print out 1 through 10 vertically, but we also print out 1 through 10 horizontally on each run through. So these ones in this vertical column, that 1 through 10 in that first vertical column is going to be the outer counter. All of the 1 through 10s across is the inner counter. So we've now counted up to 100 using just the table size number. We're multiplying these two values here. Now, as I've said before, any legal code can happen inside these curly braces. And we think back to our discussion about scope of variables, this outer counter should be accessible within our inner loop. So we can actually do a little bit of math on these. So instead of saying inner, we can say inner times outer, and very quickly predict what's going to happen. I'll show you here. We can create our times tables table. So we can create all of the numbers. So here's 1 through 10 on the horizontal and the vertical axes. And then you see the times tables are developed. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 20, up to 10. And if you look along the diagonal, it's not quite a straight diagonal, but you can see the perfect squares. 1, 4, 9, 16, 25, 36, and so on. And if I adjust my table size to, say, 15, I can create my larger times tables. So that is simple and very straightforward nested loops. Okay, so you can see I use these little switches with the multi-line comments. You just add a backslash, or I guess it's a forward slash, and it automatically turns on and off code. So we can use multiple types of loops. So it doesn't have to just be 2 for loops or 2 while loops. It can be a while loop with a for loop inside of it, which is what I have here. And then I'm also manipulating a string on the inside. So if we go ahead and run this, take a moment, read through this code, see if you can predict what will happen, and let's see what it looks like. So we can see here that it prints out each character and creates kind of an inverted triangle of my CS rules string. So the outer loop is what's controlling that vertical movement, and the inner loop is what's controlling the horizontal movement. That doesn't always have to be the case. It can be flipped, but in this case, we're using the same orientation that we did with the last loop. So the outer one is controlling that we're within the string. So as long as our string is not empty, basically, we're going to continue. And we're going to go from the beginning position of our string. We're going to make sure we don't go past the end of the string. And then we're going to print out the very first character in that string. And we're going to do that for as many characters are currently in the string. So we see that in the beginning, C, that's how many characters are in the string, and we've printed out just the first character that many times. Once we've done that, we're out of the loop. We go down to the next loop, and we actually remove, this line here removes one character from our string. We jump to a new line, and we start it all over again. This line right here, line 23, is critical. If this line doesn't exist, this while loop becomes infinite because string length never gets shorter and we'd have a problem. So I still have to have some kind of stopping condition. I still need to control for that. We could put another while loop in here. We could do all kinds of different things. So that is a quick introduction and hopefully some intuition into how to work with and manipulate nested loops. All right, next we're going to talk about algorithm efficiency and when we can get a runaway effect when we have lots of different loops nested inside of each other, and how this simple multiplication between outer and inner loops can lead to really slow programs. We're going to try to avoid that in the next video. All right, I'll see you guys in the next one.